Tonight on the Mad Dawg Show, we have scored an interview with Mark Slayball from ESPN. I don't know how he did it. You don't want to miss it, so hit it.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Mad Dawg Show. We are live from the Park Group studio right here in Macon, Georgia. Here's your host, the Mad Dawg.
Glory, glory to old Georgia, and welcome, my fellow citizens of the Bulldog Nation. Welcome to the Mad Dawg Show for Rabid Dogs by Rabid Dog. Once again, let's get to it because we have a ton to break down. Here's our agenda. First up, a somber Mad Dog apology. Second, the Go Clean Co game recap. Third, scores of note from last week. 4, the injury report. Next up is that Mark Slayball interview sponsored to you by the Park Group. It's the only interview that we have tonight because he is a world-class journalist, and that's all we need. Next, the Fincher's Barbecue Contrarian Calls by Doug Fincher. Not going to want to miss that. We've got the Kudu Grills, Keys to Victory. We've got the Mad Dog Top 10, sponsored by the Sanford Company. We got a couple of other top 10s, and if there's enough time, last but not least, we're going to have the greatly anticipated reveal of why Kirk Herbstreit hates Georgia. First, I start with a somber apology. Last week, as you know, it was our first show. It was live with a bad camera angle. Hopefully we fixed that. When the show was over, my phone was blowing up with positive messages from everywhere and everyone, all but one place, the most important place, my house, from the most important person, my wife, who I affectionately call Boss Dog. Well, you see, Boss Dog is sweet, sensitive, and she's purty, but mostly she's sensitive, and she can't stand for me to hurt other people's feelings. And so she's frequently upset because hurting people's feelings is apparently something that I'm quite natural at. So if you recall, I made a way too long analogy about how Georgia represented the prettiest girl at the party, and I said the other girls at the party were ugly. And what I meant to say, and I failed to convey, is the girls at the party were being ugly to Georgia because they were jealous and they were petty. So, of course, I know that other SEC schools have pretty women, from Ole Miss to Kentucky to Auburn to Alabama. I have no idea about Missouri because nobody ever wants to go to a game there. The problem with the lovely ladies of LSU is their accent is it's a thick Cajun accent that no one can understand. Vanderbilt, we usually pick on Vanderbilt, but they're in Nashville. Their ladies are brainiacs. They're for future CEOs, and they rock. South Carolina, our opponent this week, obviously they've got a bunch of ladies that are extremely easy on the eyes. Mississippi State, I've heard that you have some pretty women out there, but nobody wants to travel back in time 100 years to Starkville to find out. I mean, seriously, Starkville, could anyone find Starkville on a blank map of Mississippi? Answer, no one. Who did I leave out? Okay, we got Arkansas. Do not sleep on the natural state. Me and Boss Dog had a litter of youngins out there back in 97. The state is beautiful, and the ladies are too. Who's left? Tennessee. I covered Nashville with Vandy, and everybody knows that Memphis is world class, and up in the northeast corner of Tennessee is Knoxville, and they have pretty women there, the ones with a full set of teeth, both of them. Last and certainly not least is Florida. Oh, Florida, you're so desperate to be cool and you're not even close. You brag that your ladies are the most beautiful in the land, and maybe they are, but we'll never know because of all the pancake thick makeup that they wear. Your face painting is at the next level. I mean, it's like you're staging a clown show or something, except for Laura Rutledge. We love Laura on the SEC Network. She's a total pro. She leads the team on SEC Network on Saturday morning. And this kicks off my blatant pandering to get Laura Rutledge on this show. Laura, if you come to the show, I promise that I'll apologize to all the Florida people. So just pass along to the females in Florida with makeup. Less is more, unless you're trying to be a clown. Come to think of it, the clowns would be a great mascot. More on that in a minute. So there you see, Boss Dog. I did it. I apologize to everybody. Everybody should be feeling good. So now can I maybe sleep inside or have one of your home-cooked meals by DoorDash? DoorDash, call us. We're still looking for sponsors. All right, next up, the Go Clean Co game recap. We had not one, but two controversies. First, was the ESPN debacle. Some genius at ground control decided that both ESPN and ESPN2 should carry the end of the Pittsburgh-Tennessee game. But don't worry, fans. All you have to do is download their handy ESPN app. Let me tell you something. I'm a 50-year-old man. I don't just download apps on a whim. I'm not a millennial. These things take a lot of time. They take a lot of preparation. They take a lot of research. I have to think of a username. I have to think of a password. I have to be able to remember it. I'd just rather sit in my easy chair with my boots on, screaming at the TV until Pitt puts the Volunteers out of their misery, and then we get to watch the players from the Pitt-Tennessee game hug it out on the field. And then we get to cut back to the fifth stringers at ESPN giving us a recap about the massive impact that this game has on the college football landscape. Bravo, ESPN. Bravo for looking like you have no idea what you're doing again, but there's something to be said for consistency. On to the next controversy. Our quarterback situation. We in the Bulldog Nation are very familiar with quarterback controversies. We're no stranger to them. Immediately after, I'd like to point out, Vance Levy with Bulldog Illustrated came onto this show, Bulldog Illustrated, which everyone must have if they want to know what's going on in the game or what happened last week. He came on the show to tell us that at the Kirby press conference right before our show, he asked Kirby who our number 2 quarterback was, and Kirby said Beck. Rumors started swirling that JTD had an oblique injury, and they'd been dealing with it since before the Clemson game. Sidebar. This begs the question, did Vance Levy and Bulldog Illustrated scoop the rest of the press corps? Sure looks that way. That's the kind of top shelf talent that we have on the Mad Dawg Show. Now back to the quarterback situation. Everybody was worrying, will JTD start? Will he even play? Then Saturday, tonight's guest, Mark Slayball with ESPN, reported that JT Daniels was lobbying the coaching staff to let him play. Then at Sanford Stadium, they announced over the PA that the starter would be Stetson Bennett. And there were scattered boos. Another sidebar. Bulldog Nation, never boo one of our players, ever. I can't think of a single scenario where that is cool. Now, who heard those boos? The mailman heard those boos. By the way, he's the only quarterback last year to have a lead against Alabama at halftime. And then he proceeded to deliver a historic clinic on how to play the position. At one point, he was 5 for 5 with 4 touchdowns and over 250 yards. It was like a video game. He was absolutely lighting the place up like a fireworks show. And all those mailman naysayers, they shut the you-know-what up, as they should. I actually found myself pitying the Blazers as I figured out why they don't call themselves the Dragons. It's because they don't breathe fire. They don't even have a spark, not even a puff of smoke. And it's hard to give a game like this any merit because the opponent was so overmatched. But let's be picky. That's what we got to do. Here's what's bugging me about that game. First, the running game. We've got about 23 running backs. We never let them get in a groove by getting meaningful, consistent snaps. And I know I'm not the only one saying this. We don't seem to be dominating with our run blocking either. We're proficient at pass blocking, but run blocking is another story because it's another skill set. Pass blocking is keeping maniacs from getting past you to the quarterback. Run blocking is being a maniac trying to pancake block your assignment. So far, the pass blocking is well ahead of the run blocking. And again, I'm nitpicking here. Also fair to point out, UAB was loading the box and daring us to run. So, mailman passed. And I would say he did pretty good. Next, the kicking game. Not talking about Camarda. He's next level. He's an All-American. Not talking about the kickoffs by the pod. Not talking about the extra points by the pod. Obviously, it's the field goals, and we're currently 1 for 3. The misses were in the 30 to 36-yard range. You could make the case that his leg was tired because of all the kickoffs and all the extra points. Now, look, the one in the Clemson game, you get a pass. First game for him with a full stadium. It was hostile. It was pressure-packed. Next one was not as much pressure. So am I concerned? Yes, but only for this. I don't want anyone in the Bulldog Nation giving him a hard time, period. He's a student athlete. He's great, and he is our dog. And all I'm saying is this. Hey, pod, nobody's perfect. All kickers miss. Glad you're getting these misses out of the way so the rest of your goes exactly how you planned. We're pod fans here. So that's all that's worth spending time on this route. And so with that, we go to the Mad Dog scores of note. First up is the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame, or is it the Clowns of Notre Dame? Why the Clowns? Well, let's recap their season so far. Whoop-de-frickin-do. You beat mighty FSU by 3 in overtime. Except the shine on that quality win quickly lost its luster because FSU followed that up by the most ridiculous loss of the year to an FCS team on 4th and 10 for 59 yards as time expired, and they lost to the Gamecocks. Not the South Carolina Gamecocks, the Jacksonville State Gamecocks. I didn't even know Jacksonville was a state, but I digress. So hang with me. And speaking of SEC teams, world-beating Toledo showed up in South Bend to take on the Circus Clowns of Notre Dame. Go ahead and put a W in the win column, right? Wrong. Because you see, nobody told the Rockets, the Toledo Rockets, whose mascot is Rocky the Rocket, that they had to bow to the bad luck of the Irish. Well, it took the luck of the Irish, and it took touchdown Jesus himself, once again, standing over the Notre Dame Clowns for them to squeak out a 3-point win. Pathetic. What's that, Notre Dame fans? You don't like me calling you the Clowns? I was thinking about calling you the Jokers because your schedule is such a joke. But the favorite nickname I had that was given to me by a listener is the stool samples, the Notre Dame stool samples. I can just see the T-shirts now. Some people, and for the record, not me, but some people have theorized that your mascot name is not too politically correct. I mean, you're not the Washington Redskins or anything, but you're close. Just saying. All right, some quick hits until we end up with some Ohio State nuts who got chopped. First up, Bama beat Macon's own Mercer. The Mercer Bears made a respectable showing. While it was a loss, it was really a win. They got tons of exposure. They got to be on TV. It's a game they'll be able to talk about for the rest of their life. The loss was so respectable that Nick Saban was irate. The end. P.S. A key linebacker for Alabama was hurt. I don't know the prognosis on that. Speaking of injuries, Texas A&M lost their quarterback to a leg fracture, and they struggled mightily against the Colorado Buffaloes in a real head-scratcher. Overrated. That's you, TAMU. All right. Oklahoma pummeled directional Carolina. Slow, sarcastic hand clap for you, Oklahoma. Your schedule is also a joke. And the punchline is your defense. And I pray that you make it to the college football playoffs because we will beat you like a rented mule. Write that down, Lincoln Riley. Write that down. Cincinnati, some people call it Cincinnati, started slow on Murray State. It was 7-7 at halftime. They finally picked up speed. They won 42-7. They got a game with the Notre Dame stool samples coming up. It's looming, and I'm pretty sure by now you know how I feel about the outcome of that game. In the ESPN game of the week, we had Iowa against Iowa State, and all 107 people in the state got excited. But Ashton Kutcher did a good job picking games, and I'm a fan. Florida beat the USF Bulls and continued to cook up a controversy. Another one. Only Dan Darth Mullen will acknowledge it, but this week he will because the Bama Elephants are going to curb stomp the Gators and make them look silly. It's not going to look anything like last year's SEC championship game. It's going to be fugly for Florida, and that never makes me sad. Next up, Stanford, the Mighty Trees, or whatever it is they call themselves, beat number 14th ranked USC 42-28. I literally thought it was hilarious. Then they fired their coach, and he got a $10 million payday. So the joke's on you, USC. Ole Miss, they continue to look like a team to be reckoned with. Lane Kiffin is a great coach. Matt Corral is a great QB. And maybe they figured out how to play defense. Time will tell. Who am I missing out? Okay, do you care what Wisconsin or Clemson or Virginia Tech or Utah or Miami or North Carolina did? Me either. Auburn is good, people. I've been saying it. I'm going to keep saying it. I know they haven't played anyone, but let me say it again. Brian Harsin is a great coach. Bo Nix is a great QB. Tank is a great running back, and he ain't the only great running back they got. Shivers sound familiar? Traditionally, they have a great defense. And does anybody remember who their offensive coordinator is? Anyone? Because I do. And his name is Mike Bobo. Ring any bells? I know it does. Bobo's a great offensive mind, and he's great at developing quarterbacks because that's what he does. They will upset Penn State in Happy Valley. What a terrible name for a stadium. Oh, how scary, Happy Valley. We're going to play in Happy Valley. We're so scared. We're Auburn. We're going to smoke you. It won't be an upset for me. It'll be an upset for the pollsters who don't have Auburn ranked highly enough because they don't know what they're doing. Auburn wins, and it will be double digits. Kentucky beat Missouri in a game where the score was deceptive. Kentucky will be in the top 25 when we play them. Write it down. Razorbacks. Well, they beat number 15 Texas in a game whose score shows a 19-point win when it wasn't even close. At one point, it was 33-7, and it was over. Welcome to the SEC, Texas. You'll be rooming with Vandy. Enjoy. Finally, I've been waiting to talk about this, so let me have a quick sip of water. The 12th ranked Oregon Ducks went into the shoe. Another terrible nickname for a stadium. They had 5 starters out with injuries, including all-world Trayvon Thibodeau, who's supposed to be number 1 in the draft next year. And they controlled the game, and they beat Ohio State, or as I like to call them, the Ohio State Nuts. Why nuts, you say? Well, that is what a Buckeye is, if you didn't know. A Buckeye is a nut. Congratulations, Ohio State. You officially have the lamest mascot in the world. We don't call ourselves the Georgia Peanuts, do we? Well, now you've at least shown the rest of the world you're a pretender, and for the rest of the year, you will simply be referred to on the Mad Dawg Show as the Nuts. And in this game, the Mighty Ducks lifted their cute little yellow webbed feet and stomped your nuts flat. They crushed your nuts into dust, and then they pecked the nut dust using their beaks to eat the nut dust. But the nut dust tasted so terrible that it upset their stomachs. And we all know what happens when a bird has an upset stomach, don't we? That's right. Duck dew all over the shoe. Now get ready, Dog Nation. We've seen this movie before. Every year, Ohio State loses the game early at Kirk Herbstreit, and all the apologists over at ESPN begin polishing and perfuming that turd of a loss for the rest of the season. They memorialize it. Oh, no, it wasn't a bad loss. It was just an off day. Ohio State Nuts deserve to be in the discussion. The best quote of the day was by Dari Noka on the SEC Final when he said, "No one outside of Columbus was upset about Oregon winning." Now, Oregon will jump 10 spots in the rankings. I said this before the rankings came out. Would that happen if Georgia did that? We know the answer to that is no, because the media hates us and the feeling is mutual. Interesting sidebar all over social media was Big Boy from Outkast at the Oregon game. He's from Atlanta. I'm like, what's going on? Did a quick search. His son plays for Oregon. He loves the culture out there. He loves the atmosphere. The fan base has embraced him, of course. And then I started daydreaming. A Ducks versus Dogs natty after we ambush Oklahoma to get in. But I digress. The injury report is now sponsored by Could Be Your Company. It could be your company sponsoring the injury report. We still have space. It's open. Message us on Facebook if you want to be a sponsor. We already know that Tate Ratledge is out for the season. Unfortunately, at this point, I'm assuming JT Daniels is a go because Kirby said that he had made, quote, significant improvement. He's still listed as day-to-day. Darnell Washington and Tyke Smith, they're out of their walking boots and they're running. Coach Smart is not optimistic they will play this week. As we know, Brock Bowers and Latavius Brainey have done fantastic in those two positions. Arian Smith, you might have seen him limp off the field. He's dealing with a lower right leg contusion. He is probable. Dominic Blaylock, we're all waiting for Dom to come back. He's running. He's practicing. We assume at this point he's just building confidence in the knee. Jalen Kimber is day-to-day. Kyrus Jackson is still limited. And George Pickens remains, of course, still out. Next up, I still am having an out-of-body experience saying this, but we have Mark Slayball from ESPN, and you're going to have to give me a minute because his bio is substantial. American sports journalist, New York Times bestselling author, columnist, and reporter for ESPN, which he joined in 2006 as a college football and basketball columnist. He's notable during college football season for On the Mark column and is a regular contributor to ESPN programs like Outside the Lines, College Football Live, The Experts, and Sports Center. Graduated from Georgia. He's a DGD. Spent 9 years with the Atlanta Journal covering the UGA, SEC, NFL, and NASCAR. Later spent 2 years at the Washington Post covering college football, college basketball, and boxing. And I'm just getting started. Slayball is the author of nearly a dozen books, New York Times bestsellers, including Called to Coach, Reflections of Life, Faith, and Football, a collaboration with former Florida State coach Bobby Bowden. He's done a lot with Duck Dynasty. He's written Duck Commander Family, How Faith, Family, and Ducks Build a Dynasty, a collaboration with Duck Commander CEO Willie Robinson and his wife Corey. He's written Happy, 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 My Life and Legacy as Duck Commander, and Unfiltered, The Way I See It, also collaborations with Phil Robertson. He's also the co-author of the New York Times bestseller, Psychology 1, Tales and Wisdom, from the star Cy Robertson, and Good Call, Reflections on Faith, Family, and Foul, a collaboration with Duck Dynasty's Jace Robertson. In 2013, Happy, Happy, Happy debuted as the #1 best-selling nonfiction book and ebook on the New York Times bestsellers list. In September 2013, he had not one, not two, but 3 books that he co-authored on the New York Times bestsellers list simultaneously. He is also the co-author of Heisman, The Man Behind the Trophy, and other college football books about the University of Florida, Florida State, University of Georgia, and Virginia Tech. He also lives in a very cool town, Madison, with his wife and 3 children. Gee whiz, that's a long introduction. Please put him on. I'm losing my voice. What's up? Do we got him?
You got me on my phone and the desktop.
All right. What's up, Mark?
Let me get rid of this echo here. I'm doing well. How are you guys?
We're great. I'm tired from reading your extensive bio.
You got me?
I got you. Can you hear me? You got me on mute? You're frozen. Technical difficulties are part of the game, people. Bear with us. He is frozen. And now he's off. All right. We'll see if we get Mark back. Got a lot to talk about with him. And we will skip right along to the next. Well, is he back?
Drops, Kalen Newton had a touchdown drop, some other drops out there.
Mark.
Demetrius Robertson has stepped up. We've seen Shedrick Jackson kind of be that guy. Get more production.
Can you hear me?
Because Penn State, we know what's coming.
You got me?
They're going to put.
I got you now. You there?
Yeah, sorry. That's one of the drawbacks here.
That's okay. We're thrilled to have you. So welcome. All right. So before we get started, I gotta ask about maybe one of the greatest true stories ever told, and you know what I'm going to talk about, and that's Tubby, and that's not the former UGA basketball coach. We're talking about Tubby the dog, your Labrador Retriever, who found his way into the stadium during the Georgia-Kentucky game, October 25th, 1997. Guys, if you read nothing else by Mark, I beg you to Google this story. It is heartwarming. It's hilarious. It's a part of Georgia lore at this point. Larry Munson even did a play-by-play call on Tubby that is legendary. So I don't know if you have anything you want to add about that, but
the crazy thing, and I think it was in that story I did for ESPN. That was the second date I ever had with my wife, and she was not very fond of Tubby.
I can only imagine.
Tubby was a sweet dog. We loved him to death, but he was his mischief. He was just full of mischief. I lived with 2 guys off Springdale, right behind the AGR house, and at one point he had pulled so many pizzas out of the fridge into the backyard that we had to Velcro the door shut on the fridge.
I saw that in the story.
He ate my roommate Jesse Baker. He probably ate 5 pairs of his Birkenstocks, and I had to replace every one of them.
And legend has it, he even liked to eat money.
Yeah, he liked eating money too. He ate everything. But he snuck out of the house that game. I think that was Tim Couch and Hal Mummy and Chris Hatcher was on the staff. The crazy thing is when my editor at the time was a guy named Dave Wilson, who's a great guy who lives in Austin. He's one of our writers now. And he's good buddies with Sonny Dykes at SMU. And Sonny goes, He said, I was an assistant coach on that Kentucky staff. I've told my wife that story so many times, and she never believed it until I saw the story on ESPN. Right? No, it's good. I mean, it's a great story to tell my kids, and I got pictures of them hanging in my office. So,
well, what was great for me was I was watching that game on TV, and I saw the Munson call it, and it was hilarious. And I think Mike Leach may have even been on the staff then.
Yep.
And then of course I don't think I heard this, read the actual story till at least 10 years later.
I was sitting next to Plot Bryce, who was the Athens bureau chief for the AJC, and Tony Barnhart, and the photography chief at the time told me, I said, I got the picture of the dog. I said, yeah, that's my dog. He goes, yeah, it's your dog. And I said, no, that's really my dog. I remember running into Claude Felton, the SID, who's still there.
Right.
The Claude father, the greatest there is. And he was on a walkie-talkie saying, we really need to find the owner of that dog. And I was like, you just found him. But, I ended up, an animal control officer came out of the stands and got him and took him away in the paddy wagon, and he lost his manhood the following Monday.
I don't think that was in the story.
That wasn't in the story. And then 6 weeks later, we were in court. My buddy Billy Heelan, who's an attorney in Winder now, was one of my poker buddies, and he represented Tubby Pro Dog Mono. And I think we had 4 tickets, and the judge tossed them all. And I remember her saying, were there any witnesses? And I said, yes, Your Honor, 86,107. I think with that line, she let us go.
Oh my gosh. And that was the short version of that story. I mean, if you read the article you wrote, it's just fantastic.
Yeah, that one, anybody could have written that one.
Well, it was written from the heart. And speaking of that, the book you wrote with Bobby Bowden, it's really timely with his recent passing. And I was just hoping that you might be able to share some of that with us.
Yeah, I had just I was down there a lot that last year in Tallahassee for ESPN and worked some sideline games, did sideline during some games, and really got to know him. And right after he was forced out, his PR rep, Kim Schiff, called me and said he's going to do a lot of public speaking, a lot of corporate speeches. And a lot of companies are asking if he has a book, and he hadn't done one in a really long time. I think he had done one with his son, Steve, like maybe 5 or 10 years before that. And I said, yeah, I'll do it, and got okay from ESPN and went down there to Tallahassee and spent some time with him. And it was really the first big book I'd ever done. But the best part about it was he had one vice, and it was Levi Garrett. And I'd go listen to him speak, and I'd set up the book signings. And as I say, if anyone ever wanted me to devalue their book, I was happy to put my signature under his, which didn't happen very often. But we'd leave a place, and we'd go from Macon to Savannah or Atlanta to Athens, and I'd stop at a 7-Eleven or Quick Trip or whatever and give him a pack of Levi Garrett, a Coke, and a cup. He'd drink his Coke. There was not a cup, I'm sorry. He would drink his Coke, get him a chew, and spit in the bottle. And within 10 minutes, he'd say, all right, boy, as soon as we hit the highway, I'm out. And he would fall asleep, and he would wake up whenever we got to where we were going. He always slept better in the car, but just really, I mean, such a great guy. And I think it ended up being about 5,500 words, but his obituary for ESPN. Wow. For a while. And just the stories from guys like him. He had a photographic memory all the way to the end. And he would be talking about a guy who played safety for him at West Virginia, and I can't remember his name for the life of me, but he said he was one of the top 3 defensive backs he ever coached, along with Deion Sanders and Terrell Buckley.
Wow.
And, my buddy Dave Mobley in Atlanta, who's a CPA, was his CPA and was really close to him. And he told me one time they were in the car, and he said, Coach, Tommy, and I apologize for not remembering his name, Tommy so-and-so is a client of mine, and he goes, Tommy so-and-so, his mama made the best fried squirrel and biscuits I think he's ever had. I mean, this was like in 1965. And every time he saw Demetrio Stevens' name, you probably remember from Washington County.
Yep.
Every time he'd see Demetrio Stevens 20 years after he played at Florida State, he'd be like, Demetrio, your granddaddy's still making that apple pie. I mean, it was just incredible. And that's why he was such a good recruiter, because it was on such a personal level. That's why guys love playing for him.
And just a class act from everybody who's ever spent 2 seconds with him.
No, I mean, and a man of faith, and he lived it and didn't just say it. And he caught a lot of flack for not kicking kids off the team when others might have, but he really believed that, he got second chances when he was younger, and kids needed second chances when he was coaching them. And, it worked out in his favor sometimes. And there were some kids he had to get rid of that he didn't have a choice. But,
right.
That you look at what Florida State's going through right now, and I know they won a national championship with Jameis Winston and Jimbo, but I mean, for him to do what he did there, top 5 finishes, top 10 finishes for however many years, and 36 straight bowl games. I mean, it's incredible.
It really is. I mean, and obviously it probably will never be replicated down at Florida State, as going through some tough times.
Yeah, I talked to him a couple of times before it passed. He really liked Mike Norvell, and he thinks he's the right guy for the job. And, I was a little worried about him after they lost to Notre Dame in overtime, because they played so hard. And, even if you win that game, you're going to have a huge letdown. But to lose like that at the end and not be in prevent defense and the safeties, all they had to do was get the kid to the ground.
I felt sorry for him. I mean, I'm not a Seminole fan at all, but I literally watched that play, and I felt sorry for him. I mean,
it's bad. It's you couldn't have picked a worse way to lose. That's for sure, to an FCS opponent. But I still think if he can keep them together, I still think he's got a chance to turn it around.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, Tallahassee's got to be an easy, city to recruit to. Florida's an easy state to recruit to. So, but the biggest thing now is, even within the state, there's so many other schools out there that you didn't used to have to recruit against. It's more than just Florida and Miami. You got USF, UCF, FIA, FAU. I can't even keep up with all the initials, but, it's tough.
Yeah, it's Florida State, and it's not what it was in the 80s or 90s, but you still got, the other big thing, you just got Florida A&M right there, one of the biggest historically black college universities in the country. And the kids like that because there's a lot of kids like them right there. So I think it's still, and the good thing is, you can jump a lot of people in the ACC pretty fast if you can just get it figured out and turn it around.
That is a great point.
Other than Clemson, I mean,
right.
I thought North Carolina was going to be good this year, and Mac told me, before the season that they obviously lost a ton of receivers, lost some running backs, but Sam Howell was back. But he really felt like the defense was really, really young last year and would make some strides this year. But that didn't happen in week 1. So we'll see. Miami's still a mess, and Georgia Tech's Georgia Tech, and Virginia Tech may be better than we thought.
Yeah, true. Well, let me ask you this: what do you think is different about this Georgia team than in years past? What do you think is going to get us over the hump?
I mean, that defensive line is as talented and deep and nasty as I've ever seen. I mean, they just roll dudes out 4 at a time, and they're just as good as the ones who had just come off the field. So as long as they can stay healthy up front, I mean, you're not going to run on them. They got it, and I think Adam Anderson and Nolan Smith have made tremendous strides.
No doubt.
Every down players and complete players, and you can leave them on the field first, second down, third down. Anderson's added some weight. They got to get the back end of that defense up to speed because you got some new guys back there, and Ringo played better last week than he did in week 1. But I don't know. I mean, I just think it's the depth. I think it's the depth in the trenches. I think the offensive line's a work in progress after Rattler's went down, trying to get the right mix up front, but they'll get it figured out because they've got so many good players there. I mean, I hate to say it, but the big question is the one that always seems to kind of hang over Kirby's the quarterback spot. And can you get JT Daniels back, and is he going to play well? And now you've got Stetson Bennett kind of looking over his shoulder, just threw 5 touchdowns in the first half, so that'll be interesting to follow. But I think they believe, I think, they've gone toe-to-toe with Bama a couple of times in the first half and had the lead, and, they should be able to figure out how to do it in the second half now.
Yeah. And I mean, in my mind, the loss in the championship will always have an asterisk because Tyler Simmons was on sides, but I digress.
Right.
Any particular players maybe that have just really jumped off the screen at you that have just really flashed that maybe you weren't expecting?
Yeah, not that I wasn't expected, but
Right.
I mean, I just think Jordan Davis is such a more complete player than he was the last few years, and he's the perfect example of a guy who could have gone and probably been a second, third round draft pick. And Kirby probably told him, and I'm just assuming that if you come back and get in shape and work this summer the way you need to work, you got a chance to be a first rounder. And that dude is a machine. I mean, he is a monster. That play last week,
Yeah,
when he took the guy down was insane.
I mean, that was nuts. Yeah.
I mean, it's happened with other players and they didn't listen, like Isaiah Wilson. If Isaiah Wilson would have come back, he probably, hopefully, would have been a little bit more mature and would have been drafted higher. But I think it's a little too hot for the kid from New York down in the South. So
yeah. And speaking of guys that, could have gone on to the pros, there's in this day and age of the transfer portal, we had guys that could have transferred out. And, people like Channing Tindall come to mind. Latavius Brini comes to mind. Amir Speed, guys that have just really paid their dues and stuck around, because they're Bulldogs and they wanted to be there. And now their time has come and it's great to see.
Yeah, Tindall's the guy that wasn't even recruited to play linebacker, right? Am I wrong? I
can't say you're wrong. I don't remember. Was he a running back?
I think he was coming out of high school. I think he was more recruited as a running back. But, I mean, it's great that, like you said, in today's environment in college football, if you're not starting by year 2, you're gone.
Right.
And you're going somewhere else. But it's good to see guys like Brainy and Tyndall and some others stick it out and put in the work and get an opportunity. I mean, I was talking to an FSU buddy of mine earlier today, and he was moaning and groaning and complaining and said, we got all these transfers. And I'm like, you do know that Jermaine Johnson, or that's his name, right?
Yeah, Jermaine Johnson.
Yeah. I said, he can only get on the field at Georgia on third down.
Right.
I said, I mean, he's not a superstar, but he's like their best player now.
He probably wishes he was still at Georgia trying to get on the field on third down.
But it just tells you how deep they are.
Right.
They're just so banged up at receiver. I mean, McConkey is kind of a folk hero.
Right.
A Twitter legend, social media legend. We'll see if he can continue to step up. But, you want to see Smith and Mitchell continue to improve on the outside. They got to get some guys back outside. They really need Kearis Jackson.
What's the story there? I mean, is there any timetable you know of, or is it just
Kirby said tonight that after practice that he's closer than he's been, that he's probably as close as he has been. He did say Eric Gilbert is still not with the team.
Right.
Which put some rumors to rest out there. But if he can get Darnell Washington back and get Kearis Jackson back in the next few weeks before they get that stretch against Florida and those other teams in October, November, I think they'll be in much better shape than what they are right now.
I mean, am I crazy? The team that I'm most worried about on the schedule is Auburn at Auburn.
Find out a lot on Saturday.
Right.
They go up to Penn State.
Yep.
I talked to Mike Bobo before the season, and I'm a Bobo defender, unlike some of the people. I mean, I think he's one of the brighter offensive minds out there.
Agree.
I think he does a great job of coaching quarterbacks. He told me back in the spring that Bo Nix was working hard and wanted to be better, that he was putting in the time. He was studying film. I think fundamentally he's 120% better than what he was. I thought he really regressed under Gus Malzahn and his staff last year. I thought he played well as a freshman. It was big shoes to fill. He's a big name at Auburn. But they're better. I mean, if you can keep him steady and not turn the ball over, and as good as Georgia's running backs are, I don't know if any of them are as good as Tank Bigsby, a Georgia guy. I think we'll see. I defensively, I don't know. I think they're a little bit better than what I thought on defense, but we'll see how they hold up. The offensive line is going to be the key because Penn State's got a pretty good defensive line. Right.
Yeah. I don't know. I just feel like Auburn is underrated. Penn State's overrated.
It's on the road. The Auburn game's on the road, right, for Georgia?
The Auburn game is definitely on the
On
road.
the road, yeah. I mean, Florida's going to be tough. We'll see how Richardson's hamstring is, but I think Dan at some point may end up having to go to him over Emory Jones if Jones keeps turning the ball over. I just assume he's not ready to give it to him yet because he doesn't have a full grasp of the offense. And I mean, Arkansas looks a hell of a lot tougher than it did a few weeks ago.
That's for sure.
Sam Pittman, probably early front runner for SEC Coach of the Year, and a guy that waited 30 years to be a head coach and has Arkansas buying in, and they're playing their rears off for him, which probably doesn't surprise many Georgia fans because of the way he recruited at Georgia. I mean, kids just love that guy.
Yep.
And if he can continue doing what he's doing and get him to a bowl game, he can get into Texas and recruit guys, and Arkansas can be a factor in the West again.
Hopefully they won't be as far along as they might be at the end of the season when they come to Athens.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's always hard when you're a first-year coach and you win a big game. I mean, Texas beat Louisiana by 20 the first week, and everybody's patting them on the back saying you didn't make the mistakes, you didn't turn the ball over, you didn't do what we did under Tom Herman. You guys are so good. Texas is back. And then you go on the road and get your rear kicked on both sides of the line of scrimmage. So I figured they'd struggle a little bit, but I didn't think they'd get manhandled like they did. But as I mentioned on College Football Live today, and my buddy Dave Wilson again gave me that, and I went back.
I need to meet him.
Yeah, he's a great guy. He lives in Austin. So he told me earlier in the week, he goes, Slayball, you're not going to believe this. Since 2008, Texas has had 3 offensive linemen drafted. Since 2008.
Wow, that's crazy.
Alabama has had 19 drafted, 8 guys in the first round. Texas has 0 first rounders. Vanderbilt has had 6 offensive linemen drafted, 1 first rounder. Texas has had 3 offensive linemen drafted in the last 12 years.
That makes no sense. I mean, Austin's a great town. They should be easy to recruit there. I mean, I guess just they're getting beat by Texas A&M and
it does.
Baylor and Oklahoma and Houston.
Offensive linemen in Texas are about as bountiful as old Derek's. I mean, you have to go Florida to find one.
Right. Texas is definitely not back, says Daniel Weaver. What's up, Daniel? All right, so we could talk about football all night long. We obviously share a common bond and love for the Bulldogs, but
I see Jennifer Stevens, Foster Stevens.
Jennifer Stevens said he went to school with her. That's right. You see that?
I went to high school with Jennifer Foster Stevens.
That's her. Yep. Old college buddy of mine as well. So we love the Dogs that much. We know we also share a common bond in our love of Athens' own Widespread Panic. So when and where was your first Widespread Panic show?
Man, I knew you were going to ask me that. I cannot remember for the life of me. I'd had to be at the Georgia Theater on like a New Year's Eve show or something like that.
Right.
My buddy Mark Neal or somebody probably dragged me down there. I don't remember, just like I don't remember a lot of those early shows for some reason.
Yeah, I don't know how that is.
But the first, I mean, I was at all the Super Jams. I remember we would sit at Uptown Lounge on New Year's Day or New Year's Eve watching football games, and Todd Nance's wife at the time was a bartender at the Uptown, and every year she'd come out with a stack of tickets like that and start selling them to people. And so for like 4 or 5 years, there were like 3 or 4 of us that would hang out in the Uptown Lounge every New Year's Eve to get tickets to the New Year's Eve show.
I did not get that memo, unfortunately.
I can't remember who found out about that, but they also had the coldest Rolling Rocks in Athens, Georgia at the time. The first big, I'm trying to think. I remember seeing them at the Supper Club in Auburn when I was still in school.
Right.
And there were like 8 of us in there.
Right.
It was crazy. There was nobody there. And we asked one of the bouncers, we said, "Where's everybody at?" He's like, "Oh, Charlie Daniels is playing the K-Abe House." I mean, and they still put on an incredible show. And we got home about 6 o'clock in the morning after driving back through the night. But no, that was it. I mean, I went to probably maybe 50, 75 shows in school, and I haven't gone to nearly as many since. I did the the couch tour at the place in Atlanta, the Tabernacle in Atlanta was one. And I went up to Asheville like 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Right. Yeah. You told me.
On the first night. I could not believe how old JB looked. And then I was like, yeah, we all look pretty damn old.
Yeah, we're all aging.
Yeah. But it was fun. You and I talked about it earlier, but my oldest daughter's kind of started listening to them. And she lives in Athens. She's a junior at Georgia, and the Exterminator came in the first time, and she's got a Widespread Panic poster on her wall of her bedroom. He's like, "Who's the Panic fan?" We sat for an hour talking about Panic.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Yeah, we had a lot of overlap on those shows there. My first one was 89 at the Fidelt House. We had to climb through a window. I see Frank Dye has weighed in from the Dominican Republic and says his first show was the 40 Watt in 1988 and Indecision opened.
Indecision, man. I haven't heard that name in a while.
Right? A friend of mine was in Charleston this past weekend. They played there. Cal Halliburton.
Indecision.
Yep.
I saw, I don't think I ever saw Panic at a fraternity house in Georgia.
That was my one and only.
The first time I ever saw Dave Matthews, they were playing the basement.
I was there. I was at the Chi-Fi house in the basement. Yeah. I saw it. I was there.
It was like you and me and like 10 other people because everybody was upstairs.
Yeah, and I looked around and I was like, these guys, they're pretty good. They may be going places.
Yeah, my buddy Mark Neal again. He had just been to Colorado for a semester or whatever, quarter.
Right.
And he's like, you got to come listen to this Dave Matthews dude. It's nuts. And then within like a week, they were playing the Georgia Theater. My favorite story about college that I always tell is I got a friend, Jason Howell from Savannah, who was the social chairman at Sigma Nu fraternity. And Darius Rucker kept calling his apartment, his condo, saying they wanted to play the Sigma Nu house. He called like 9 times and left a message. It was when he was Hootie and the Blowfish.
Right.
Jason picked up the phone and goes, "No offense, guys, you suck." And he just hung up on it. Like 2 years later, they got whatever the hell the name of that song was.
All right. Well, I lived with some Kappa Sigs, and they kept telling me, "Oh, you got to come to the house. We've got Hootie and the Blowfish." And I was like, "I'm not going to come here." That band based on the name alone. Yeah, and then, like you said, right after that, they blew up.
Yeah, no, I love him as a country guy.
I think he's better.
He loves golf.
Oh, really?
Yeah. No, he's like a PGA ambassador or something.
Wow.
He is.
So back to Widespread, what do you think makes their music so special that you and me and legions of other fans still want more after 35 years?
If you ask my wife, it's certainly not for the drum solos. She leaves the room every time somebody starts banging away or whatever. But I don't know. I mean, I like the fact that they never sold out.
Right.
And they do what they do, and they've made a lot of money because they've toured for so long and did so many nights. But they've remained true to who they are and where they're from, and they've had their up and downs a little bit with the guitarist, especially losing Mikey. But
right.
I mean, you can go. I mean, it's just I love it now. I had not been to a show in like 3 or 4 years before
right.
Asheville, and now we're looking down on the floor and you see all these kids, and now you're in the upper deck with the dudes with the beards, but they're all
right.
The gray beards and the gray hair and the thinning hair, and it's fun.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I told you, my kids used to make fun of me when they were younger, and they're like, "Dad, why do you listen to this? It's no good." And I said, "Let me make a prediction. You're going to go to college, and when you get there, all your friends are going to think they're awesome." And that's exactly what happened. And so, of course, now they listen to them. And, to me, in addition to all the reasons you said, it's just really cool when you go, because in some ways it's like a family reunion in that you see friends that you don't see them anywhere else. That's the only place that you're able to see them is at those shows. It's almost like a family reunion. And when you go to a show, it's not like a football game. There's not a winner and there's not a loser. Everybody wins.
Yeah, no question about it. It's something that Athens has and Georgia has that other places don't too,
Right.
And you've got all these great venues. Again, my buddy Wilson, who I always refer to, He'd never been to Athens until a couple of years ago, and he went to do a story on, of all things, Waffle House. And so he spent a day at the Waffle House and 5 Points and the one downtown, and he was like absolutely blown away by the music scene in Athens. And he's a big music guy, and
Right.
he's been to Austin City Limits a few times in the last couple of months, but that was a bad thing. My buddy Lang McLeod flew all the way to Austin. Was about to pull into the gate. Was about to pull into the gate and got the text message. The show had been canceled, but he said Saturday night they went and watched a Widespread Cover Band.
I saw that on Facebook. Yeah, that's hilarious. Well, if you can't have the real thing, you might as well have. Hopefully, they're a good substitute. I don't know.
Yeah, it's I guess it's better than listening to Hootie and the Blowfish.
Well, your words, not mine, but
better than listening to Fish. How about that?
Oh, are you gonna hate on Fish?
No, I'm kidding. I got yelled at on Twitter a couple of times for trashing on train.
Oh yeah, well we can't talk bad about Fish on here. This show will end. I mean, everybody, it'll be cancel culture. They'll cancel the Mad Dawg Show. For the record, my bachelor party it started at a Fish show. I won't tell you where it ended, but it was fine.
That's good. I just never got into it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you kind of got to see him live.
Yeah. I don't know. I took the good side.
Well, hey, if you're going to ask me to pick, there's no question who I'm picking. Picking bands from Athens. REM, B-52s, Widespread, and then names you don't really ever hear, like All Good and White Buffalo and the Grapes, bands like that. You remember some of those guys?
Oh yeah, the Grapes. Well, I mean, the craziest thing is I cover golf now, and I'm actually going next week to my first ever Ryder Cup in Whistling Straits for a week. That doesn't suck. And
no,
but the last couple of times I was at the Masters, I got invited to a Calcutta with a bunch of guys I used to work with at the AJC, and I show up the first year, and Mike Mills is sitting there.
Right,
he was in our Masters Calcutta. And I introduced myself. He goes, "Oh, I love your writing." I was like, I kind of like yours too." It was just so crazy. He's a neat guy, huge sports fan.
Well, that's funny you say that. So when the Georgia Theater, burned down, they rebuilt it. They had the rooftop bar. Widespread played the big, grand opening, and me and my wife were at the rooftop bar. There's Mike Mills. Introduce ourselves to him. Tell him we're from Macon, how much we're huge REM fans. Super nice guy, so down to earth. Then the next week, I go to the Masters. And who do I turn around and see there but Mike Mills? So we recap the show at that point. But, yeah, he's an awesome guy.
I got a buddy here in town whose kid is a freshman at Georgia, and the life of me, I can't remember his name, and now I feel bad. But, they've already got Mills and Bill Berry and those guys follow him and texting him and encouraging him. And I remember his dad told me the first text message he got from Mike Mills. He's like, "Really love your music, man. Keep doing what you're doing, working hard. You guys are headed somewhere." And he's running. He goes, "Oh my God, that's the guy that wrote Night Swimming." Awesome.
Oh, that is awesome. Well, Mark, thank you so much for being here. I can't say thank you enough. I mean, literally, you being here, it legitimizes this show and makes it, something that people go, "Oh my God, Mark Slayball is there. These guys, this is real. It's real now because you came here." And so, can we go ahead and put you on the calendar to do this every Tuesday?
Yeah,
you're not busy.
No, I think there are a lot of people out there that would say it does the opposite as well, though, depending on what school they cheer for.
Well, the target market here is kind of right in your wheelhouse. So I'm pretty sure you're talking to your people.
Yeah, we love it. I mean, I have to be objective, and I am objective whenever I have to be. But when you're writing a couple of checks every quarter, semester for a couple of girls over there, I think you get a swing one way. I think the wallet talks before anything else.
Yeah.
Thank God for Zell Miller and the Hope Scholarship is all I can say.
Amen, brother. Amen. I got my last one just started there as a freshman, and it feels like he's spending more money than his twins put together. It's unbelievable.
So we were at Clemson. I was working at Clemson. My wife and daughters went to the game, and we were back in Athens Saturday for the UAB game. I did not go to the game. We did not go to the game, but it was my younger daughter, Jane. It was her birthday on Sunday. So my older daughter, thank God they get along so well, she threw her a birthday party at her house in 5 Points, tailgate. And so we didn't go to the game. We just went downtown, and I bumped into Jarvis Jones and Bakari Rambo. And my daughter, Caroline, my older one, is in, I think it's called Silver, some bar downtown.
Oh, okay.
Calling the dogs with Jarvis Jones, and I got it on video.
Nice.
To my buddies, I said, everywhere we go, she's calling the dogs. And I
That's
said,
awesome.
Look what I've done.
Well, yeah, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. So, if you can't make it on next week, since you're so famous, can you pull some strings and get John Bell from Widespread Panic on here? Because, I'm not asking much here, but JB, I'm just putting that out there. This is your fan base. These are your people. This is a safe space for you.
You get John Bell on, I'll listen every week.
It broke up. What'd you say?
I said, if you get John Bell on, I'll listen every week.
Okay. All right. The challenge has been laid down, people. The challenge has been laid down. I will find a way.
He's up there at Decoa or somewhere, isn't he?
Yeah. Not Cartersville. Something starts with a C. Never mind. We don't want it. He's in an undisclosed location, so that he can not be descended upon by legions of spreadheads. But guys, go out, buy Mark's books, read them. Wikipedia gives you a complete list. Mark, thank you again for coming on. So, Mark Slayball, Facebook world, we did it. He was here. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.
All right, you too. Go Dogs. All right, the next segment sponsored by Fincher's Barbecue. It's a new one. We have Doug Fincher's Contrarian Calls. I have not read these. I'm going to do my best to get through them. I'm sure that there's a lot of typos. So here we go. In the Auburn game, Coach Mike Bobo will give it to the tank 30 times, and Auburn will squeak by Penn State on the road, which means they cover. Side note, Mad Dawg says Auburn wins by 10. Do you remember Jim McElwain? And yes, I do. He is now the head coach at Central Michigan. Doug is calling for a shocker here, as Central Michigan plays LSU tight and maybe even gets the win regardless. Take Central Michigan plus 20 points. Also this week, Doug thinks the Hogs will come out flat early and then get it together and get the win, but not very much against the Georgia Southern Eagles. He says take the Eagles in the 24 points. Stanford comes off of a big win against USC, and now they play Vandy. Why would anyone take Vandy plus 11 points? 70% of the public wouldn't do that, except Doug Fincher. His contrarian call is take Vandy plus the 11. Finally, Bulldogs play South Carolina. This South Carolina team is undefeated, but according to Doug, not me, these are his words, they're not that good. Georgia, he's saying, is not that good yet. Wow, it's not very Doug-like, but may become the special team we have been waiting on since the next senator of Georgia left campus over 40 years ago. Who am I talking about? I'm talking about Herschel Walker. Seems like a lot of points, but whether it's JTD or the mailman, the offense will deliver again and the defense may score again. Georgia wins big, 38-3. Last one he has is Bama versus Florida. He says Doug is not calling it this time. He refers to himself in the third person. He says, get us a 1-800 Mad Dawg number and charge $25 to hear the recording of Doug's pick. I'll look into that. And that may be the last time we do that segment. Love you, Doug. But I don't know. We'll see what they say on Facebook. Next, we have the Kudu Grills, keys to a dog's win. There's 5 of them, and they're very similar to last week. Stop the run. I feel like I'm going to say that every week. Establish the run on our side to set up the pass, win special teams, win the turnover battle, and pretty much we're going to win. Generally speaking, we need to keep the Gamecocks soft and sad. Now, speaking of our opponent, South Carolina Gamecocks, they have a mascot that perennially pissed off people at PETA should get fired up about. What does PETA stand for? It stands for People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. Of course, that's something that I can get behind. For dog lovers, we treat our dogs like kings. But what's a gamecock, you might be asking yourself? A gamecock is a rooster bred and trained for cockfighting. What is a cockfight? It's a blood sport where razors, I'm not making this up, razors are attached to the rooster's spurs to inflict pain in a fight to the death. Although this despicable sport was long ago made illegal, it is still practiced by inbreeds in the Carolinas. And by inbreed, I mean people who marry their cousins, or in the case of the South Carolinas, brother marrying sisters. And they chose a mascot that glorifies this horrific sport. That is certainly not an ethical way to treat an animal, much less a humane way. So PETA, if you want to make a run at somebody, look no further than our less than worthy opponent this week, the South Carolina Fighting Chickens. They like to call themselves COCKS. Their words, not mine, and I spelled it. I didn't say it. I'm just repeating them, boss dog. I'm just mama. I didn't say it. This is what they say. They put it on T-shirts. They put them on T-shirts with things that say, you can't beat our... For shame, South Carolina. I would say you were better than that, except clearly you are not. Want to know how to treat a mascot? Look no further than our beloved Ugga. He has his own air-conditioned doghouse on the field. And should that not quite be cold enough, the handlers fetch big bags of ice to cool off his big bag of bulldog family jewels. Ugga only eats the finest foods prepared by a canine nutritionist. He has pureed filet mignon. He lives a charmed life that is far better than any of the students at Georgia. If he even gets the sniffles, he's airlifted to the best vet care on planet Earth. So my friends at PETA, don't look at us. We have a regal mascot that we treat like a king, not a lowly yard bird treated like trash. And for the record, the dogs will beat the cocks until they are salted sat. Moving right along, the Mad Dawg Top 10, sponsored by the Sanford Company. At number 10, Florida. Speaking of quarterback controversies, Dan Mullen has a real one. We know how that will end, don't we? We know how this game is going to end, don't we? Florida might still be ranked here if they play a respectable game next week. I don't think they will. Our score against Florida will be the measuring stick for Florida's score against Bama. 9, Iowa. I'm not a believer, but I have you ranked worse than the other polls, so that gives me some measure of satisfaction. Everything about you is boring. When I flipped it to your game the other day, it made me sad, and I promptly turned the channel like the rest of America. Auburn. You know my thoughts on Auburn. They're good, and they will beat Penn State at Penn State's stadium known as Happy Valley. Again, terrible name. The rest of the college football world will swoon at this upset. And well, I shrug and remind you that I told you this was going to happen. Clemson plummets from number 3 to number 7. Why? Other than playing us, their schedule is a tire fire and a dumpster fire in a city dump. Sad is too nice of a word to describe the rest of their schedule. Words like pathetic and preposterous come to mind. 6, Cincinnati. I've been talking about them. Remember what I told you. If they run the table and win their conference, coupled with an OU loss or some Iowa State nuts lose, or maybe like Clemson loses. Oh, wait. Clemson's already lost. Ohio State nuts have already lost. So here we are. All they need now is an OU stumble and maybe a Duck loss, inexplicable loss to the Oregon State Beavers. Shout out to Beaver, which is a person with a nickname Beaver in Macon. You know who you are. Then they're there. Bank on it. Oklahoma plays Nebraska. Is anyone other than their fans going to watch? No, they will not. Texas A&M at 4. I shouldn't put you here, but because you're in the SEC, I'm going to cut you some slack. Prove me right, TAMU. Prove me right. I don't think you will. Georgia. Oh, wait. I skipped my favorite one in the top 10 of all, the Oregon Ducks. The Ducks, with their webbed feet, crushed some Ohio State nuts into nut dust and swept them out of the top 10. And for that, we say thank you, Oregon. And now we get to our beloved Bulldogs still at number 2. We handled our business. Yes, we have another quarterback controversy, but it's who's going to be our third string quarterback. And that really leads to the question of, are we going to burn Brock Vandergraaf's red shirt? We won't. Number 1, we already knew this, Alabama. Saban is still fuming because he only beat Mercer, our beloved Mercer Bears, 48-14. And that is why he's going to take out his anger on Darth Mullen's Lizards. He's going to make Gator boots and belts and vests and hats and purses and maybe luggage. He will feast on grilled gator with a nice Chianti and some fava beans like Hannibal Lecter. P.S. Notre Dame has a top 10 matchup this week against a top-ranked Purdue, or words that no one will ever say. And the spread's only 7. Again, embarrassing. Embarrassing. And my producer's looking at me. I've not only run out of time, I've run overtime. So we're still not going to get to the Kirk Herbstreit story, but we'll get to it eventually. I promise. It's real, and you're not going to believe it. So with that, I say, see you next week, and thank you for tuning in to the Mad Dawg Show, y'all. And please tell your friends. Peace.